We will now get started with our debate regarding the challenges and opportunities that collaboration presents. Gordon Floyd, an Agora board member, member of our National Engagement Strategy Advisory Committee, and the CEO of Children's Mental Health Organization, is the moderator for today's debate. He will introduce our debaters, the respondents, and how the process will unfold. Ladies and gentlemen, Gordon Floyd.
Thank you, Nathaniel. We are continuing to reset the stage as we go, I hope that you're going to find that this championship round is a great way to approach the end of this terrific summit. Now, you have seen in your programs what the resolution is that is about to be debated. Be it resolved that closer collaboration within the sector does not produce better outcomes. We are a sector that is constantly trying to improve our society and improve ourselves. Two of the things that we have talked about a lot over the last couple of days and over the last several years are about collaborating more and producing better outcomes. What we're going to be exploring today is the possibility that those two goals may be in conflict. And we have assembled a championship panel of debaters and respondents who are going to tackle this topic. I should say at the outset that probably any one of us in this room could argue either side of this resolution. And I ask you to bear in mind that as our debaters take their positions, they are being provocative, being stimulating, maybe not always arguing the position that they truly believe in their heart of hearts, but I think that you will find that they will give us all good meat. And you will need to pay close attention, because after the debaters and the respondents have finished their part, you're going to have 15 minutes or so at your tables to try to determine which of the points that were made, which single point that was made, either pro or con, resonates the most with you and why. So the format that we're going to use is classic debate format. We will have one of our debaters speak in favor of the resolution. The other debater will speak in opposition to the resolution. They will each have 6 minutes. Then we will turn to our two respondents. We have two young leaders who are going to respond, and they will be free to comment on either side of the subject matter as they choose, or both sides if they want to do so. And then our two debaters will each have 4 minutes to make final comments before we turn the agenda over to you for your determination of what the single point was that resonated the most with you. So, I feel like I should have a gong here, or, there should be some of that UFC or WWF. Hey. So, here they come, ladies and gentlemen, our debaters. For the resolution, we have Dr. Roger Gibbons, who is President and CEO of the Canada West Foundation. He was for 25 years a professor of political science at the University of Calgary, including 9 years as department head. Roger has authored or co-authored or edited 22 books and more than 140 articles and book chapters. He manages to fill up an entire bookcase with his own stuff. Most of his writing has dealt with Western Canadian themes and issues. He's a Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, past President of the Canadian Political Science Association, and a recipient of both the Alberta Lieutenant Governor's Award for Excellence in Public Administration and the Peter Lougheed Award for Public Policy Leadership. Roger received his undergraduate degree from UBC and his doctorate in political science from Stanford University in California. He will be an impressive debater, I'm sure. But he is up against He is up against somebody who started her career as a prison guard, so got to watch her. The Honourable Frances Lankin, former president. She's the former president and CEO of United Way Toronto, and she served for 11 years in the Ontario legislature, including 4 different cabinet posts. In 2006, she chaired a federal government-commissioned Blue Ribbon panel, which made recommendations for improving how Ottawa distributes grants and contributions to charities and other organizations. Today, this is a woman who likes a challenge. She co-leads a review of Ontario's social assistance system, and she serves on the University of Toronto School of Public Policy Advisory Committee, the Ontario Press Council, and several other large community roles. Frances has been awarded the Queen's Jubilee Medal, United Way of Canada's Award of Excellence, the Canadian Public Relations Society's CEO of the Year, the Toronto Star Laurel Award, the Equal Voice Eve Award for her efforts to advance the cause of electing more women, the Consumer's Choice Woman of the Year Award, and the Italian Chamber of Commerce of Toronto's Community Builder Award. She has a trophy case that is bigger than Wayne Gretzky's. She holds honorary degrees from both Ryerson University and Seneca College, and she serves on the federal government's Security Intelligence Review Committee. Ooh. Watch it, Roger. Okay. Now, we also have 2 outstanding respondents. Michelle Grouchy is the project coordinator. Michelle Grouchy is the project coordinator for the Adopting Research to Improve Care, or Arctic program at the Council of Academic Hospitals of Ontario. Previously, she held positions in fundraising, volunteer management, and event planning. Michelle has long been an avid volunteer in various organizations supporting mental health, addictions, and health-based charities. Currently, she volunteers at Imagine Canada, where she has done what has been described to me as some very strong policy work. Michelle studied health sciences at the University of Western Ontario and nonprofit and voluntary sector management at Ryerson University. She's recently completed a Master's of Public Policy at King's College, London in the UK. And Khorshid Hakemi is the Director of Governance and Executive Operations at the Vancouver Foundation. Khorshid joined the foundation after practicing law, both in Vancouver and in New York. As Director of Governance, Khorshid has helped the foundation develop comprehensive board governance systems and played an integral part in the foundation's strategic planning process. Khorshid studied economics and international business at UBC and law at the University of Western Ontario. She has also studied on exchange in Mexico and Spain, as well as working with the Canadian International Development Agency in Chile. Khorshid is co-founder and chair of the board of directors of British Columbia's Young Afghan Association, which supports Afghan students through a free tutoring and mentoring program run entirely by volunteers. So, debaters and respondents, are you ready? All right. So, each of our debaters will have 6 minutes, and we are going to start with Roger Gibbons speaking in support of the resolution, be it resolved that closer collaboration within the sector does not produce better outcomes. Roger, you're on. And we're going to ask you to come here because people at the back can't see you otherwise.
Well, thank you very much. If this is the championship round, I feel a bit like David, who left his slingshot back in Calgary. But I'll try and squeeze in maybe a 7th minute to compensate.
6.
I'll try it. You're all aware of Robert Putnam's bowling alone analogy, which he equates with the deterioration of American society. So my unenviable task today is to turn bowling alone into a virtue by arguing that closer collaboration within the sector does not provide better outcomes. Now, arguing against collaboration in this audience, after everyone stood up and sang sort of, the more we get together before lunch, is the ultimate setup. It's sort of like arguing the polar bears are evil and they should drown. However, a case can be made the contrary case can be made. I just want to mention a couple of very quick caveats. I do speak from the perspective of the think tank community, which is a very small and idiosyncratic part of the nonprofit sector. But that's the sector I know after 14 years with the Canada West Foundation, which is a charitable organization. I also want to stress that we collaborate all the time. It's not a black and white issue. However, I'll try to make the case that as a general operational strategy, it's often better to bowl alone. And my focus will be on organizational outcomes rather than broader societal outcomes, because in the public policy world, my win might be quite different than your win. So, 9 quick points. First, collaboration consumes large organizational resources. I spend a lot of my time in collaborative activities, and I do so at the expense of time that could be spent on internal management, thinking, writing, mentorship. So I feel I've become an asset for others, but less of an asset for my own team and my own organization. So collaboration has a very strong organizational cost. Secondly, collaboration can blunt, blur, or weaken an organizational brand. Individual policy voices in my world can become lost in a chorus and risk being drowned out within that chorus. And note, incidentally, that the media encourages singular voices with individual sort of credentials. When does the Globe and Mail publish an op-ed written by sort of a group of people? Never happens, never should happen. So, third point. Coalitions or collaborative groups may carry less political weight than many organizations making the same general argument, but from their unique organizational perspective. It may be that the most influential strategy is 1,000 points of light rather than a single flashlight. Fourth, collaboration is a lousy fundraising strategy. In my world, funders fund individual organizations, not cooperative undertakings. Now, I will certainly build in cooperative elements into any grant proposal that I make, but I realize that my competitors are after the same pot of money as I am. In the final analysis, hockey teams do not collaborate to try to win the Stanley Cup, nor do think tanks. Fifth, collaboration runs against the mantra of virtually all nonprofit boards. The mantra is focus, focus, focus. The mantra of cooperation is to abandon organizational focus in pursuit of common purpose. Put aside what you're really supposed to be doing and help us. Sixth, in the policy world, at least, collaboration can blur or blunt policy nuance. It drives you too quickly to a collaborative or a compromised position, and it makes the policy debate less agile, less subtle than it might be. Seventh, it's hard to collaborate if your primary assets are intellectual capacity and intellectual capital. So it's useful to consider universities, right? Why don't universities collaborate more? Well, because they're in a very competitive situation exercising political capital. Universities never let collaboration get in the way of strengthening their own competitive advantage in the pursuit of students, faculty, money, and community reputation. University presidents are hired to beat off collaboration, and the successful ones are very good at it. Eighth point, in the policy world, it's ultimately the role of politicians to strike compromise, to find the middle ground. If we do that within the think tank community, if we feed them sort of a collaborative pablum, it's not going to result, I don't think, in good public policy. Finally, collaboration tends to be a top-down phenomenon. My staff gets very nervous whenever I walk out of the office because they never know what I'm going to come back with, what sort of collaboration I'm going to inflict on them. So collaboration doesn't bubble up. It's imposed by entrepreneurial CEOs. So in conclusion, let me return to Putnam's bowler. The reality is, when we stand in the alley, bowling ball in hand, we are bowling alone. It's the individual bowler, the individual organization and its skill and capacity, and not the team, that will determine whether we deliver a strike or a gutter ball. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger. Roger's thrown down the gauntlet. Now, 6 minutes to argue against the resolution. Francis Lankin.
Well, thank you so much. When we were first discussing what topic was going to be put into the resolution for this debate, we had some concern about this particular one because we weren't sure about who was going to be brave enough to step up and argue the pro side. So thank you, Roger. You reluctantly agreed to do that, and we appreciate you taking on the challenge. But I have to say, as I reflected on this, I wondered sort of, why all the concern? I mean, surely, really, deep in our hearts, we all actually agree with the resolution, with what Roger just said. Now, what's my proof for this? We're all people of strong principles in this room, and so what does that mean? It means we live what we speak, we act what we say, and we walk what we talk. And so when I look around the sector and I see so little evidence of actual collaborative action for impact, then I know that has to be confirmation of the fact that we actually truly agree with Roger's arguments and with the proposition that is there. After all, we are the sector that coined the term co-opetition. Proudly, we say co-opetition. I was speaking with one of my fellow delegates here yesterday who told me about a leader in her home community who each day, talks about the fact that we collaborate in the morning and we cooperate in the afternoon. And as if that was some kind of sector attribute to boast about. Sure, I know we speak a lot about collaboration. In fact, we've talked a lot about it the last couple of days here. But I'm going to suggest that we talk about it as a rhetorical commitment. And what I mean by rhetoric in this sense is the definition of rhetoric, which is language designed to have a persuasive or impressive effect on the audience, but is often regarded as lacking in sincerity or meaningful content. Now, you got to remember, I'm a recovering politician, so when I talk about rhetoric, I know of what I speak. So Roger has set out the challenges to working more collaboratively, and with respect, I'm going to call them excuses. What are the reasons why? What is the reason why we should overcome these excuses and collaborate for impact? I want to do just a quick little survey. Can you give me a time check as we go along here, just so I know?
Yeah. You're only 2 minutes in.
Great. Just a little survey. How many people work on really complex problems, issues, intractable issues? Keep your hands up as we go along. Poverty, income inequality, housing, arts and culture. Keep your hands up. Creative expression, environmental sustainability, climate change, sport and recreation, engagement, what have I forgotten? Have I forgotten? It's like, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How many of you have actually solved the difficult problem or achieved your organization's mission? Keep your hands up. Okay, I don't watch television, but I'm told popular, culture references are good for speakers. So, as Dr. Phil would say, how's that working for you so far? Okay, so I want to make, the proposition that we could look at things in a very different way. And I'm going to use inspiration from Nathaniel about, what if we could. So I'm going to use the word imagine. I know where I'm at. Okay, imagine. Imagine if we came together to set a collective goal on something that we're working on with many others from multiple sectors. Imagine if we figured out a strategy to get from here to there, to that end goal. Imagine if we looked around the table and we said, who's got what to contribute to getting us down this strategy and to that goal. Imagine if we figured out what the milestones were of steps towards that goal, and we measured and reported on those. Imagine if we evaluated, learned, and adjusted our strategy as we went forward. Imagine if we celebrated our contribution instead of having to look to celebrate the attribution, to claim that we achieved it all. Imagine what Canada could be. Imagine Canada. Imagine. Here we are, right? Where are we going? What is our purpose? I sat in a workshop yesterday about communicating our impact as a sector. I heard people say who we were. We talk about ourselves as a sector that deals with the intractable problems, the sector that works on the complex social issues, the sector that's been doing that since the Victorian age. I actually want to talk about solving intractable problems. I want to talk about solving complex social issues. I want to talk about the families that are no longer living in desperate conditions of poverty in Attawapiskat or anywhere else in our country. I want to get to action, and I want to do it with all the working parts that we can marshal in this very, very fortunate situation we are in, to be able to mobilize resources of a caring community, resources that are backed by tax structures and by incentives to give, by a sense of a collective will. We have so much to work with, and we have so much responsibility to achieve the actual goals. We don't have the incentives in place. I don't know, as a former CEO, my board never rewarded me in my compensation package for how much I had collaborated. I understand that. I understand that when we hit the $120 million a year goal in fundraising, that someone could grab onto that number and celebrate it and say, you know, that was progress. No one asked me in the neighborhoods we worked in how many kids were now graduating from school where we had all of those programs that we were funding that weren't before. No one asked me in those poorest neighborhoods in Toronto where the diabetes rates are soaring and where the government's going to be spending billions of dollars on diabetes, how we had brought the community together, how we brought the supermarkets who had abandoned those communities back to bring fresh produce, fresh food, the farmers markets. No one asked me about the community gardens. No one asked me about what the result was on the impact of diabetes. All those things were going on, but we weren't at one table. We hadn't set a goal. We hadn't said in a generation, diabetes will be eradicated in this neighborhood. We hadn't said in that school, in 5 years, there will not be one child that drops out, and they will all have that opportunity and the impetus to go on to post-secondary education. We can imagine a different Canada. And we can accomplish it if we can learn to reform our system, and reform means a different set of relationships, and it means being able to set aside organizational structures, to put our focus on what the goal is of what we want to accomplish, to get rid of egos, to do the work, to roll up our sleeves, and to make change happen. Imagine Canada.
The lines are drawn. What do our respondents say? Let's hear first from Michelle. 4 minutes.
I think I'm going to agree with both sides, actually, of the I'm going to take the balanced approach today. And I think everyone's initial reaction to collaboration is that good things arise when we work together. I think that's probably an easy sell in this room. But I think, as Roger pointed out, when working together, there are numerous moving pieces that, for a successful process, fitting all these pieces together is very challenging. As I did some preparing for today, I realized, as Francis pointed out, most of the information on collaboration and coming together is really lacking in evidence. To prove that we have made outcomes and results by collaborating, there isn't a lot out there. Most of the information out there is actually on the process of collaboration, and tips and tricks to ensure a successful process. I think, I think that the lack of evidence proving that collaboration produces better outcomes is maybe because the process of collaboration is very difficult. It's time-consuming, resource-intensive, and so writers focus on highlighting the keys to success rather than assessing the results. Obviously, there are certain outcomes that are easier to measure than others, and evaluation requires time and money. Some objectives, such as increased cost effectiveness, avoiding duplication, and better quality services, are easier to measure. Other things, as Francis pointed out, are not. The benefits of social capital and the collective efficiency of neighborhoods and populations is almost immeasurable. Again, certain collaborations may not make a direct impact to service delivery, but the increased number of services to which clients have access to as a consequence of collaborations is not easily assessed. I think in the end, everyone can agree collaborations are extremely time-consuming, challenging, and frustrating. However, when the right players and the right pieces come together, it's amazing what can be achieved. I think that the lack of evidence out there is a call to action for the sector. We need to do better at measuring our collaborations to prove that they are worthy of time and funding and explanations. Me as a young leader, I don't think that every single collaboration that I'll participate in the future will produce successful results. I do believe, though, that there will always be a lesson to be learned, and hopefully I will measure these results as we go forward. But I will continue to collaborate because in the end, I do believe that in the mentality that one head is better than two. Sorry, two heads are better than one. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. And now our one-headed final respondent is Khorshid.
Thank you. So I'm like Michelle. I'm one of those middle grounders where I agree with both Roger and Francis. And my opinion on this topic, and it's a pretty classic lawyer response, is that yes, closer collaboration does produce better outcomes, but only if that collaboration is done right. So what does that mean? We talk a lot about whether we should collaborate and so on, but we don't really talk about how we should collaborate and how we collaborate can actually have an impact on the outcome. So what does that mean? It means that there needs to be a comprehensive agreement with well-defined goals, duties, responsibilities, a timeline, and a system for measuring success to keep both sides in the game. And just to give you some context, as Gordon mentioned, I am a recovering lawyer. So I used to be a corporate lawyer, and I practiced in mergers, acquisitions, joint ventures, partnerships, all different forms of collaboration. And in my role, I was responsible for drafting a lot of these different agreements. And the shortest one of these agreements would be about 30 pages. The longest ones would be over 100 pages, all defining this relationship that the two entities were entering. And what I learned from that was that the key to a successful collaboration was not necessarily having a 40-page agreement, but taking the time to discuss and agree on the key terms beforehand. And so what are those key terms? I actually thought I'd just go through a few key points just to give you some context. First, after you identify who the collaborators are, it's really important to clearly state the goal or the objective of the collaboration and how it will be set up. So will this collaboration be part of one entity? Will it be part of a separate entity? Will it be operating on its own? It's really just to give some thought to how this collaboration will operate. Second, what's the term of the collaboration? I mean, that sounds fairly simple, but when does it start? When does it end? What happens if before it ends, one of the parties wants to exit the collaboration? What happens if a new person or a new entity wants to enter? Third, we need to outline in our collaboration agreements what the initial contribution is of each entity. So are they contributing money? Are they contributing staff, knowledge? And what if the collaboration later on needs additional contribution? What's the process for inserting whatever additional contribution is needed? Fourth, what does the management of the collaboration look like? How are key decisions going to be made? Is there going to be an advisory committee set up to deal with key decisions, or is the day-to-day management going to be siphoned off to one organization? Or will each key decision be made jointly? Since reputation is so important in our sector, there may be some prohibited actions or key reputational decisions that we may want to highlight ahead of time and outline a process for. The more thought we give to this ahead of time, the less the entities will be frustrated and aggravated in case an issue does come up.
30 seconds.
So fifth, if a problem or an issue does come up, how will it be resolved? This collaboration agreement has got to have some sort of dispute resolution mechanism included in it. And sixth, sometimes collaboration results in jointly developed assets. And what happens to these assets after the collaboration is ended? Who owns them? So as you can see, there's a lot of different issues to consider and document, and none of these are impossible to resolve, but they just need to be discussed ahead of time so that the parties can enter the collaboration without reservation, and the collaboration will have a much better sense of success.
Excellent.
I think we'll stop there.
Thank you, respondents. And now we have rebuttal time. We are going to lead with Frances, 4 minutes for rebuttal, and she will be followed by Roger. Frances.
Well, as you can see, and as I'm sure you're all personally aware, there are different sides of the issue, and there's actually a balance to be struck in the work that we do. There are things that are within an organizational mandate that are individual focused, purposeful, that we can work on individually, but there are some really complex issues that we will be much better able to resolve and to solve and to make progress on and to move the needle on if we figure out how to do collaboration. So I want to, in the few minutes that I have, actually talk about the how-to and follow up a little bit on your comments. But first, let me evoke some of the words of the Governor-General. He talked about barn raising, a very powerful metaphor. He talked about people bringing their different skills and abilities with a single goal, but remembering that each barn is different and unique. Now, a barn's a simple goal. It's not a complex issue. But if it was in our sector, we'd probably have an agency for a red barn, a blue barn, a silage barn, a cow barn, but not to go there again. The metaphor is still a powerful one about bringing people together. There's a lot of people doing a lot of work around collaborating for impact these days. One of the speakers and writers is a fellow named John Kania, and I just lifted his words because they're representative of a lot of the body of work and thinking that's going on. The conditions that are necessary, we need to have a common understanding of the problem. So we need to bring people together and discuss that through and arrive at that common understanding. We need to forge an agreement on a common set of strategies to address that problem. We need the agreement to be a joint action so that we're going to jointly address the problem, and we're going to hold one another accountable. We need a shared measurement system. A lot of people talk about how difficult it is to measure, but if we understand where we're going, and we understand what the roadmap looks like, and we understand the turns along the way, knowing whether we've hit those turns or not are milestones that we can measure and we can report out on. We need continuous communications out, that accountability, the evaluation, the learning, and the communicating out. We need backbone support. Yes, collaboration can be difficult and can be frustrating, and it takes resources. You need to actually structure that support for it. And we need catalytic donors. And there are some in the room today, and there are many that we know. And there are people who are yearning to invest in impact and outcomes. And I think we need to build the case of why this kind of difficult collaborative work is the way that we're going to achieve some of that. Yesterday, our mayor, I think we're all calling him our mayor now, our mayor talked about the fact that we have to focus on outcomes and that we have to engage people's talents. It is all about bringing the multiple sense of community together. Manuel talked at lunchtime about the process being as important as the result, and the result being as important as the process. And I want to pick up on that because I think the process of bringing people together to accomplish that goal is about building the sense of community, the sense of shared ownership of the goal as well as the solution. And I think that process is equally as important, but so is the result. And a lot of us have got great process, and we haven't always got the great results that we want. So I think it is time to think about how to do these things differently. Now, through this conference, we're talking about 4 sort of theme areas, and I think we can all agree that there is great value in us coming together, for example, in the workshop that I was in yesterday, to talk about having a common voice towards communicating our impact. I'd just like us to do that, but to take it a step further, which is common action to actually get the results that we're looking for in our society. Thank you.
And the last word in this round goes to Roger, 4 minutes.
I guess the biggest challenge that I face is trying to square collaboration on a broad stage with financial sustainability for the organization that I run. We've been very heavily involved in a collaborative effort to create a Canadian energy strategy. I think it's some of the most important work we've done, and it's been a financial black hole, and I may actually have to pull out of this collaborative activity because I can't afford to stay in it. So yes, I think we all want to end poverty, to bring world peace. But if I go into my organization, speak to my staff and my board and say, from this point on, we're focusing on ending poverty and bringing world peace, the stampede out the door would be incredible, led by the funders. And the staff will be yelling over their shoulders, turn out the lights when you leave. So part of the dilemma here, I think, is a matter of scale. I think it's easier for larger organizations to do the important collaborative spade work than it is for smaller organizations. Francis argued that we have to put aside sort of our organizational silos. It's a little bit like, in the case of big organizations like the United Way, it's a little bit like the elephant saying to the mice, let's collaborate. Well, yes, to a degree. So that's the challenge, I think, is trying to square these two goals. It's interesting that the most successful think tank in Canada, named after a river in British Columbia, at least the most successful think tank in terms of staff, money, international presence, does not have a collaborative bone in its body. They will never collaborate on getting across the street, and yet they seem to be successful. So collaboration is a big part of the world that I live in, but it does cross-thread questions of organizational sustainability. And that's the dilemma, I think, that many, at least small or mid-sized organizations face. And it's important then not to get carried away in sort of the kumbaya rush to collaborate and neglect the responsibilities we have as individual presidents and CEOs for organizational sustainability. So I'd like to suggest that, and I apologize for a song that our two discussants will probably never have heard of, but maybe this is the time to stand up and sing, I'll Do It My Way. Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you've now heard from the debaters, you have heard from the respondents, and it's over to you for the next 10 minutes. At your tables, please have a discussion with your table mates about to identify the single point, pro or con, that resonated the most with you and why. Please use your laptops to communicate your findings to the folks at the front, and we'll connect with you again in 10 minutes. Well, it sounds like there was quite a bit of discussion at all of your tables. Our aggregators of your wisdom have been working like beavers over on this table up at the front, and I've got a selection of some of the points that you made at your tables that I'm going to share with you now. And what I have noticed at a quick glance through these is that they're fairly balanced. Most of you seem to find stuff worth supporting or commenting on both sides of this debate. So be it resolved that closer collaboration within the sector does not produce better outcomes. So here are some of the points that resonated with you at your tables. In financial collaboration, nobody really wins. There's always a partner that comes out on top. That was from one of the tables. That was what really rung your bell. Another table, collective impact is a successful model for collaboration, but there are not a lot of examples of successful collaborations. It's expensive and difficult to measure and evaluate collaboration, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. A third table, collaboration, this is the thought that resonated with you, collaboration is a risk, but it's necessary in order to bring forward innovation. So we don't innovate unless we collaborate. Fourth table said collaborations are useful, but they have to be done right and under the right circumstances, case by case. Here's the point that resonated with a fifth table. Funders don't support collaborations, they fund organizations. Now, that particular table said they don't agree with this. And something really funny has just happened with this tablet, so that I can't even read it. Let's see what we can do here. So, they don't really agree with this. They have a funder at their table, lucky them, who says that collaborations save money, that networks and coalitions aren't listened to. Oh, no, sorry. These are two different points from the same table. Let's back up here. The first point from this table, these guys cheated. They were only supposed to do one. So the first point was that funders don't support collaborations, they fund organizations. They don't really agree with this. And I guess they agree with the funder at their table who says that they save money. I don't know, I never agree with funders except when they hand over checks. The second point that resonated with that table was that networks and coalitions aren't listened to, that only organizations are listened to, and they don't agree with that either. So this is quite a contrary table. Yet another point. Oh boy. Not all collaborations cost money. They can save money. This was a point that resonated with one table, such as sharing space, backroom services, and so on. And let's close with the observations from a table who found something to agree with from each of Roger and Francis. The point from Roger that struck them was the elephant and the mouse metaphor, the culture clashes and the problems that can result from a collaboration between unequal partners. And the point that resonated for that same table from Francis was that there's no evidence around the effectiveness of collaboration or its impact on outcomes, but that no one's asking for the evidence. So, oh, wait a sec, there's one more just popped up on my screen here at the bottom. Collaborations are not a one-size-fits-all. They depend on issues, timing, and how they're resourced. One key to effective collaborations is when there's an equality of purpose, respect, and resources. So, thoughtful responses from your tables. I'm sure you'll have more thoughts as you go, and thank you very much.